The knife slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. Eli stood across from me, arms crossed, his jaw set like I was some stranger asking too many questions at a bus stop. Flour dust hung in the air from the pie crust I'd been working on. I hadn't even raised my voice. I had simply said, "Your curfew is still 11. That hasn't changed." His reply came fast, sharp. "You're not my real mom. Dad's girlfriend is better. At least she doesn't act like she owns me." I stared at him, not moving. Not blinking. I had raised him since he was 8. I taught him how to ride a bike. I sat beside his bed through fevers and heartbreaks and spelling tests. I packed his lunch the day he forgot there was a field trip. I was the one who took the day off to attend his parent-teacher conferences when his father had a meeting. I remembered the first time he called me Mom by accident. He was 10. I pretended I didn't notice, so he wouldn't feel embarrassed. And now I was just the one who acted like she owned him. The words sliced deeper than they had any right to. Because I knew they weren't entirely his. I could hear the echo of Graham's new girlfriend in them, Vanessa, with her perfect curls and flirty laugh, who waltzed into his life a year ago like she'd earned a seat at the family table. I could have argued. Could have reminded him who showed up. Who stayed. But I didn't. Instead, I wiped my hands on a towel, turned off the oven, and said one word. "Okay." Then I walked out of the room. Not in anger. Not in sadness. In clarity. That night, once the house had gone still, I sat at my desk and pulled up my bank accounts. The car Eli drove. Registered in my name. Insurance on my card. His private school tuition. Due next week. Billed directly to me. I stared at the figures on the screen, dollar amounts that had quietly left my life month after month, while my presence in his life was being rewritten in real time. I clicked Cancel Autopay. Then I logged into my DMV profile. And I started making decisions. Not out of spite. But out of self-respect. Because I didn't need to argue about whether I was his real mother. I just needed to stop financing the illusion that my role was optional. The truth was simple. If I wasn't his mother, then I didn't owe him mother things. The first time I met Eli, he was 8 and barely spoke above a whisper. His mother had passed less than a year before, and Graham, always more focused on forward motion than healing, was eager to get things back to normal. Whatever that meant. I remember Eli sat in the back seat of the car during our first outing, quietly watching the trees blur past, while Graham made forced jokes and I tried not to sound too careful. I didn't force anything. I brought him little things. Comic books. Chocolate chip muffins. I waited for him to talk. He warmed up slowly, one Lego build at a time. When he had nightmares, he'd stand in our doorway until I noticed. Graham was always traveling, so it was me who stayed up and sat beside him, me who ran the cool washcloth across his forehead when he had the flu, me who drove him to and from school for 3 straight years without complaint. I remember when he asked me how to tie a tie. He was 12. I didn't know how, so I stayed up watching tutorials on YouTube until I got it right. I practiced on one of Graham's old ties until I could do it in my sleep. That Sunday morning, Eli walked into church with his chin high and his knot perfect. That tie is still in my drawer. When he turned 16, things started to shift. Graham reconnected with Vanessa, an old college flame who resurfaced like a pop-up ad no one asked for. She was loud and bubbly, with a gift for knowing how to make men feel young and boys feel flattered. Eli lit up around her. She brought him sneakers, took him to concerts, let him swear around her like he was 25. Suddenly, my curfews were strict, my dinners were boring, and my rules were controlling. Graham thought it was just a phase. But I knew what it really was. It was the moment I stopped being mom and started being management. The discipline. The structure. The reminders to finish homework, turn in his essays, take off his shoes inside the house, those became ammunition. Vanessa doesn't make me do that. Vanessa said I'm almost an adult. Vanessa gets me. And Graham? He didn't correct him. He didn't stop the slide. He smiled, shrugged, and said, boys are gonna push back. But it wasn't pushing back. It was erasing. I tried everything, therapy sessions, late-night talks, handwritten notes left on Eli's desk when I felt us drifting too far. But the message kept repeating itself. You're just the backup. The placeholder. The rulemaker. I gave him years. Love. Stability. But one shiny new woman and a few gifts later. I was disposable. The alert pinged while I was paying bills, just another notification from Eli's social media, which I'd never had the heart to unfollow. It was a photo of him with Vanessa. They were sitting on the hood of her convertible, matching sunglasses, grinning like models for a family vacation ad. The caption read, "Real family. Real love. No tags. No mention of me." It was the real that broke something. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Then I glanced down at the tab I already had open, the tuition invoice from his private school. $8,600 due next week. Paid every semester without fail. Not by Graham. Not by Eli. By me. My hand moved on its own. I clicked the box that said, Cancel autopay. Confirmed it twice. Then I stood up, walked to the garage, and stared at the car. A clean, dark gray sedan we picked out together just after his birthday. I'd spent weeks researching safe models that didn't scream a mom car, but also wouldn't put him in a ditch. I co-signed the loan. Paid the down payment. Covered the insurance under my multi-driver discount. Eli called it his baby. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then I walked back into the house, sat down, and opened my DMV login. Title search confirmed, registered solely in my name. Next step, initiate transfer of ownership and prepare it for resale. After that, I logged into our shared budgeting app, one of the few remnants of a time when Graham and I had joint plans and shared responsibilities. I removed my name from every joint account related to family expenses. No more auto-renewals. No more family Netflix. No more grocery bills. My credit would no longer fund their fiction. Graham didn't notice. Why would he? He was away for the weekend, something he called a romantic recharge. Vanessa had posted a boomerang of their champagne glasses clinking in a hot tub. She didn't raise Eli. She didn't clean up after his first stomach flu in a hotel room in Chicago. She didn't teach him how to load a dishwasher, or how to apologize to a girl after a rude comment. She just showed up, perfectly timed, when all the hard parts had been done. And somehow, that earned her a crown. But crowns can be made of receipts. And I had plenty. I clicked through one final screen, insurance cancellation effective immediately. The garage would be empty soon. And for once, so would my conscience. Not out of guilt. But out of clarity. Because if I wasn't his real family, I had no reason to keep paying for the fantasy. The woman at the school's finance office sounded surprised when I called. Are you sure, Ms. Walters? The payment has never been missed before. I'm sure, I said calmly. Please remove me from Eli Graham's billing record. Effective immediately. There was a pause. Can I ask why? I kept my voice even. Because I'm not his legal guardian. I'm the former wife of the man who's too busy funding a fantasy to notice who's footing the real bills. Another pause, longer this time. We'll update the records, she finally said. But the next payment is due next week. I'm aware. That's between his father and the fantasy. I hung up. Then I called my lawyer. It had been months since the divorce, but I never fully severed the financial threads, not out of obligation, but out of instinct. I thought I was keeping the peace, doing what was right for Eli. Now, I was doing what was right for me. We began the process of dissolving everything that tied me to Graham and Eli, legally, financially, logistically. No more emergency contact at the school. No more secondary driver insurance coverage. No more co-signatures on anything. That same afternoon, I listed the car. By morning, it was gone. Sold. Clean transfer. Payment wired. I kept the paperwork in a folder near the front door. Just in time. Because at 4:17 p.m. Eli stormed in from school, slammed his backpack onto the table, and shouted. "Where the hell is my car?" I was making tea. I turned around slowly, met his eyes, and walked over to the side table. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, printed the night before. Wordlessly, I handed it to him. He stared at it, confused. Then he read it. The title. My name. No co-owner. No secondary. "Why would you do this?" he hissed. "You know I need it for school, practice, life." I didn't flinch. "You said I wasn't your real mother," I said softly. "So now you don't have real mother privileges." His mouth opened. No words came out. I stepped back, placed my mug gently on the counter, and looked at him the way a banker might look at someone trying to withdraw from a closed account. "You made a choice, Eli. I'm just honoring it." He muttered something under his breath and stormed to his room, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the hallway mirror. But I didn't chase him. Didn't apologize. Didn't even sigh. Because I wasn't angry. I was free. This wasn't vengeance. This was repossession. Of my money. My labor. My peace. My power. The call came in less than 24 hours after the car was gone. I was in the middle of replying to a freelance client when Graham's name flashed on my screen. I almost didn't answer, but something told me this needed to be heard. I picked up. "What the hell are you doing?" he barked, no greeting, no pause. "That car was for our son." I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. "That car," I said evenly, "was registered under my name. I paid for the down payment, the insurance, the maintenance. It was a loan he never had to apply for because I co-signed. My name gave him those keys. So I took them back." Graham was fuming. "You're being ridiculous. Vindictive. You're punishing him over teenage drama." "He's nearly 18, I interrupted. "Old enough to declare I'm not his mother. Old enough to compare me to your girlfriend and say she's better. I'm simply stepping aside. If Vanessa's the better woman, maybe she can handle his tuition, transportation, and school lunches." There was silence. "Then, you're pushing this too far, Naomi." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "You want to go legal?" I asked softly. "Perfect. Let's show a judge the financial history. I have itemized receipts going back nearly 10 years. I have email confirmations for every dentist appointment, camp registration, field trip, grocery run, and emergency school supply I paid for. And I'll ask the court to reimburse me for every dime if that's the game you want to play." He went quiet again, but I could hear the breath catching in his throat. "You wouldn't," he finally muttered. "I would," I said. "And you know I'm organized enough to win." He didn't reply after that. Just hung up. I expected him to cool down. Instead, I started hearing things from mutual acquaintances. That I was spiteful. That I ambushed Eli. That I took away everything out of jealousy. Typical Graham, shifting the narrative before it could catch up to him. I didn't respond. I just forwarded the call log and transcript to my lawyer and blocked both of them, Graham and Eli, from my phone, email, and social accounts. Then something unexpected happened. A message popped up in my inbox, from Graham's sister, Andrea. I heard what happened. Just wanted to say. I never liked the way they used you. You deserved more. You always did. It was short. But it was enough to remind me. Some people saw the truth. Even if they had stayed silent before. And more importantly, I saw the truth now, too. And I would never let myself forget it again. The first domino fell quietly. 2 weeks after the tuition deadline passed, Eli was officially withdrawn from the private school. I didn't hear it from Graham or the school directly. I heard it from a former teacher who reached out with a gentle, "I hope he's okay." I said nothing. Because he was no longer my responsibility. The school wouldn't hold his seat. It was too far into the semester to wait around. And without payment, or paperwork from a legal guardian, there was nothing more to discuss. Graham tried to scramble. I heard through the grapevine he begged the school board for an extension. Promised he'd figure something out. But extensions don't pay bills. And Graham was already stretched thin. Vanessa had taste. Weekend trips. Spa memberships. A designer bag habit she didn't even try to hide. Graham had always liked shiny things. But this time, the price was bleeding. He couldn't afford Eli's new school and Vanessa's lifestyle. Something had to give. It started with arguments, loud enough that a neighbor from their gated community mentioned them at a church gathering. Then came Vanessa's social media shift. Fewer family dinners, fewer bonus son hashtags. More solo pictures. More cryptic quotes about being drained by ungrateful people. Then came the deletion. Every picture with Eli, gone. Like she'd never even tried to play mother. Eli spiraled. His grades tanked. He started skipping classes at the temporary school Graham managed to squeeze him into, but only part-time. Suspension came quickly after he was caught vaping behind the gym. Again, I didn't comment. Didn't swoop in. Didn't offer advice or sympathy. It wasn't that I felt good watching him fall. It's that I finally understood, I wasn't the net anymore. I wasn't the cleanup crew. I wasn't the uncredited backbone of someone else's story. And without me, the whole thing was crumbling. Graham tried to enroll Eli in a public school mid-semester, but it was complicated. Zoning. Attendance records. Test placements. He complained about the system being rigged. Funny how structure only seems cruel when it stops favoring you. I didn't interfere. I didn't offer to make calls. I didn't write letters of recommendation. I didn't return their messages. Instead, I bought a new set of pots and pans and started cooking for myself, simple meals that filled my apartment with warmth and calm. I adopted a cat from the shelter. Her name is Luna. She follows me from room to room like I'm her son. She doesn't ask for much, just food, care, and quiet trust. It's the healthiest relationship I've had in years. I moved the framed photo of me and Eli, taken when he was 10, both of us smiling by a campfire, into a drawer. Not out of bitterness. Out of peace. Because I'm not erasing the past. I'm just no longer financing the illusion that it still defines me. It started as a whisper. Just a few late-night thoughts typed out between sips of chamomile tea and the soft hum of Luna curled at my feet. A blog. Nothing ambitious, just a quiet space where I could unpack years of invisible labor, disappointment, and the strange weight of loving someone else's child as if they were your own, only to be told you never really belonged. I titled it The Steady Step. Each post was raw. Honest. No pretty bows, no perfect endings. Just truths like: some of us mother without recognition. Some of us grieve children who are still alive. Some of us build homes that get edited out of the photo. I didn't expect anyone to notice. But someone did. A mid-sized parenting site found one of my essays, "When You're the Mother. Until You're Not," and asked to publish it anonymously. I agreed. 3 days after it went live, my inbox was full. "You gave me courage." This was me, but I was too afraid to walk away. "Thank you for showing me that choosing yourself doesn't make you the villain." I read every message. Some I cried through. Others I reread 3, 4 times, wondering how many women had walked the same lonely hallway of quiet sacrifice. Then came the message from Eli. Just one line. I didn't mean it. No hi. No apology. No ownership. Just those 4 words, floating in my inbox like a stone dropped into still water. I stared at it for a full minute. Then closed the tab. I didn't reply. Because silence wasn't cruel anymore, it was sacred. That night, I wrote in my journal: forgiveness doesn't mean you invite the wound to sit at your table again. It means you stop bleeding every time you remember it. I wasn't angry at him. Not anymore. He was a boy raised in a world that taught him women were replaceable, that labor without titles is invisible, that emotional loyalty doesn't matter if it doesn't come with a bloodline. And I had been the casualty of that belief. But now, I was something else. I was a woman who could walk into her own home and breathe without expectation. I was a writer with a voice that rippled into places I'd never visit. I was a different kind of mother. The kind who knew her worth, even when no one else clapped for it. The kind who didn't need to be called Mom to know she mothered with everything she had. And most of all, the kind who knew that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away with love still in your hands, but none left in your pocket. The stage wasn't large, just a modest platform in a sunny conference room filled with folding chairs and women who looked like they carried entire worlds on their backs. The panel was called Motherhood Without Apology. I sat between a foster mom who worked in community health and a woman who raised 3 kids after surviving domestic abuse. When it was my turn to speak, I took a breath, not to calm myself, but to honor the silence that used to swallow me. I spoke about emotional labor. About being the invisible parent. About loving a child with everything I had, and still being seen as temporary. I spoke about stepping back, not because I didn't care, but because I finally did, about myself. They listened. Some nodded. One woman near the back wiped away tears. "I'm not here to bash anyone," I said. Not the boy. Not the man. Not the other woman. This isn't a war story, it's a story about returning to yourself after giving so much away, you couldn't even remember what your own voice sounded like. When the panel ended, I was approached by people who thanked me for giving shape to their own unspoken truths. I went home that night to a clean apartment, Luna napping in a patch of sunlight, and a simmering pot of soup on the stove. The peace was real. The next morning, I went for a walk. Just a casual loop around my old neighborhood, no purpose, just curiosity. When I turned the corner and saw the house I used to live in, I stopped. It looked empty. The lawn was overgrown. The hedges that I once trimmed were wild. The blinds were closed like the house was asleep. And by the mailbox, half tilted in the grass, stood a for sale sign. No car in the driveway. No laughter spilling out of windows. No smell of dinner wafting from the kitchen I once stocked. I didn't feel angry. Or vindicated. Or triumphant. Just, done. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the quiet. Then I smiled. Not out of cruelty. But closure. I turned and walked away. Final voiceover. They thought I was the backup. The placeholder. The funding account. But I was the glue. And when I let go, everything they built on my back began to fall. I didn't take revenge. I just took back what was mine.